Hey guys, welcome in. It's Brad with College SportsCast. And right now it's me. I am here to do our week 13 rivalry week college football and some college basketball weekend wrap up show.
We executed.
I heard a fan offer free Dippin' Dots if I blew it.
Wanted to have some fun, execute.
I had bombs.
Stay as a team, execute, give 100%.
Dippin' Dots sound good.
What is up, guys? Here to do rivalry week. Easy for me to say, right? College football. It's the last regular season weekend of the year. It is Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving over the week. Over the weekend, we took Thursday off, and we haven't been on since Tuesday this week. So I hope everybody had family and food and some fun, maybe some football, basketball, and spent some time and had a good holiday Thanksgiving weekend. Was thankful for some stuff that's going on in your lives or around you or something, and hope everybody had a good holiday. So with that said, I'm going to dig into some stuff, and right now it's just me. Everybody's been busy with the holiday this weekend, so I'm going to start out with some college sports news. Right off the bat, Houston has fired Dana Holgorsen, their football coach, after 5 seasons. Dave Aranda met with Baylor brass, and they have decided to retain him. Baylor is 3-9, I think, this year, and was not very good last year either. Had a great first season. I think this is only his 3rd year there, but the last 2 years has really not been all that great, but they have decided to retain him. Texas A&M QB Max Johnson is going to the transfer portal as a grad transfer. All signs are pointing to Will Rogers, quarterback from Mississippi State, entering the transfer portal as well. The transfer portal does not open until December 4th. Officially, Terry Bowden was fired today at La Monroe after 3 seasons. Something kind of big. James Madison and Jacksonville State has qualified for bowl invites and be their very first bowl invites. And they've done this because there is not enough. There's 41 bowls. We need 82 teams. And there is not enough 6-6 or above teams. And because of that, they are going to invite James Madison and Jacksonville State. Both of those teams are new to the FCS Division One. I forget it's Division One college football, and this is their first invites. They weren't really eligible because they are new to being called up, and now they are both going to be eligible for the bowls. I got John on with me now. So James Madison and Jacksonville State are going to bowls for the first time, and the reason why is, again, because there's not 82 teams that are 6-6 or above. So that's some college sports news.
There's a third team, isn't there?
Yeah, I think, but those two are going to be new. It's the first time they weren't actually eligible to begin with because they are new to Division One, basically college football. But because there's not enough teams, they're going to let them be a part of the bowls.
Well, right.
So-
Like I said, I think there's a third team that's part of this. I think Jacksonville State's number 2. It's James Madison's 1, Jacksonville State's number 2, and there's a third. There's a third team. I think there's, instead of 82 teams being eligible, there was like 79. So it allowed for 3 teams to be.
I thought I seen last night where it was 80. I really haven't looked this morning, so you might be right.
Could be, but I think from what I understood, there were 3. But either way, it's good for Jacksonville State and James Madison because those were the teams that were getting shafted after having pretty good seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. James Madison's 11-1, playing for the Sun Belt championship this coming week, and championship week. And Jacksonville State is, I don't know the exact record, but they're 8, 9, 10 wins as far as I know.
They've either got 3 or 4 losses. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah, they're either at 8 or 9, I think, wins, something like that.
Right.
According to what I'm pretty sure, I didn't look it all over, but I just wanted to point out that they are now bowl eligible. Because there's 41 bowls and they need 82 teams.
Correct.
Yeah, right. So, let's see. Colorado has got a little bit of stuff going on, and I want to get to that as far as the news stuff here. So, they had the number 3 2025 QB decommitted, and a longtime assistant there, Tim Brewster, resigned today. So that's 2 top recruits out of that class now that has decommitted, and Tim Brewster, a longtime Colorado assistant, resigned. So there is some stuff. They won their first 3 ball games. Everything was going great. They was ranked. They put them in the polls. They were ranked. Colorado finished the season 4-8. So Deion's got a little work to do. And that's actually exactly where I predicted Colorado to be preseason. I predicted them 4-8. And I think they're where they should have been. They only won 1 ball game last year, and the year before that, I think they won 0. So winning 4 is definitely an improvement.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's
there
definitely
is some
an
stuff
improvement
going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's an improvement from what's going on the last couple of years, for sure.
Right.
I mean, but there's some stuff going on there, and I just wanted to point that out as well here when I was talking about the college football news. So with that said, it was rivalry week, and we are going to talk about our college football scoreboard. So I'll kind of start digging into that. First, John, before I get to that real quick, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
I did. How about yourself?
Yeah, I had a pretty good Thanksgiving. Been busy running here and running there and that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I had a pretty good Thanksgiving. Had some food and family and football, little basketball.
There you go.
And been to about 3 different places. So over the last few days.
Yeah.
But so our college football scoreboard, we'll get to that. It started on Tuesday night. We had Bowling Green over Western Michigan 34-10. Eastern Michigan over Buffalo 24-11. Thursday night was the Egg Bowl. And Ole Miss beat Mississippi State 17-7. Friday night, there was quite a few games this week on Friday night, so I'll try to get to those. Oklahoma beat TCU 69-45 in that game. Iowa beat Nebraska 13-10. They threw a pick late in this game, and Iowa kicked a field goal. It was 10-10. Nebraska actually had the ball late, and they threw a pick, and Iowa kicked a field goal and beat them. Miami beat Boston College 45-20. Memphis beat Temple 45-21. Toledo beat Central Michigan 32-17. Ohio beat Akron 25-14. Tulane beat UTSA 29-16. Utah State over New Mexico 44-41. Missouri beat the crap out of Arkansas 48-14. Arkansas doesn't look like they're going to be doing anything with Sam Pittman, but they went 4-8 this year. Boise State beat Air Force 27-19. Texas demolished Texas Tech 57-7 Friday night. Penn State demolished Michigan State 42-0. And Oregon handled Oregon State 31-7 Friday night. So, Oregon State was one of the big games of the weekend. Oregon State was never really challenged in this game, and Oregon handled their business. And we'll get to where they're at and everything, but it's basically they're in the same position that they have been for a few weeks now. Yesterday, started out with Michigan and Ohio State 30-24 in this game, and that was Michigan on top. There's been a humongous amount of talk about Ryan Day and his third straight loss over with Michigan, and that's just not acceptable for a lot of Ohio State fans, right?
Well, I mean, in this era of college football where Michigan has decided that they do that they're a top 10 program. I mean, they are overall because they are the winningest program in college football, but
yeah,
it had been a while since they had won against Ohio State prior to these three games. You can say what you want about the cheating scandal, about the sign stealing and whatnot, but obviously in this game here, that there wasn't any sign stealing because the main guy that was a part of it was let go from the team a while ago, and then of course the head coach, who is ultimately responsible for everything, was not on the sidelines. So
right.
Ohio State can't sit there and point, well, they were stealing our signs. So whatever. I mean,
right.
I think everybody knew about it during those 2 years anyway. And if they wanted to do something about it, they should have. But, it wasn't until recently before all that stuff came out. So,
I mean, I've even been on some Ohio State message boards, and, I'm not talking about all the crap that's being said, but it looked to me like even with Ohio State fans that they felt like that Marvin Harrison Jr. was the one that really was one of the only ones that showed up that act like he wanted to, do everything he could do to try to win this game.
Right.
According to what I, just talking about the game itself, not a bunch of the crap that goes on behind the scene or whatever. But so Michigan handles their business. I'm sure they'll be number 2 in the college football playoff now, beating Ohio State. And we'll find that out on Tuesday night. Kentucky beats top 10 Louisville 38-31. Cardinal Stadium. Big win to finish off the year. I'm not even going to try to deny it. Fans have been pretty rough and hard on Kentucky this football season, but right now, where we stand, Kentucky has played 4 college football playoff top 10 teams this season. And there's not many schools that can say that.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say about it. I mean, honestly, that's a third of their schedule. They have played top 10 college football playoff oppositions, opponents. And, they beat one of them. That is Georgia, Alabama, Missouri, and Louisville. 4 top 10 teams. And they finished the season 7-5. And I'll get into, there was a whole lot of stuff with Stoops and A&M last night, and it was a late night, and I was up very late trying to follow all this stuff last night, and it looks like Stoops is going to stay. There's a little backlash with all this stuff, so we can get into that a little later. But speaking of A&M, the next game, LSU beat them 42-30. Purdue beat Indiana 35-31, and Indiana has fired their coach. Allen was fired today after 8 seasons, I believe, at Indiana. Sam Houston beat MTSU 23-20. UConn over Massachusetts 31-18. Duke over Pitt 30-19. UCF over Houston 27-13. And I mentioned off the top of the show that Holgorsen was fired after 5 seasons today. SMU over Navy 59-14. Troy beat Southern Miss 35-17 and earned the right to host the Sun Belt championship game next week with James Madison, by the way. Northern Illinois 37, Kent State 27. Miami, Ohio 17, Ball State 15. Rice over FAU 24-21. Syracuse over Wake Forest 35-31, and Syracuse also fired their coach. Neighbors was fired.
You heard who they've talked
I'm not
about?
Sure,
Have you heard who they talked to?
I heard that they talked to Dan Mullen.
Yep.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yep.
I heard that they talked to Dan Mullen. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything else. Did Neighbors even coach in this game? Do you know? I think it was before this game, wasn't it? That he got fired. It was over the weekend, this holiday weekend. But
right. I did not
I don't know if he even coached in this game, to be honest with you. But they won 35-31 over Wake Forest. Tulsa beat East Carolina 29-27. North Texas over UAB 45-42. Old Dominion 25, Georgia State 24. Western Kentucky 41, FIU 28. Utah beat Colorado 23-17. Sorry. Louisiana beat UL Monroe 52-21. San Jose State, this was kind of surprising score, if you ask me, beat UNLV 37-31 at UNLV. That was only their 3rd loss of the year. And then we get to Alabama and Auburn. Heartbreaker for you, I know. Absolute heartbreaker the way that game ended. Jordan Hare, usually the magic goes in Auburn's favor.
I don't know. That voodoo magic is going against Auburn the last 2 weeks. So,
I mean, usually though it goes in Auburn's favor, but seems to be going in the other direction lately.
Yeah, I think Brian Harsin put a hex on that place.
Yeah. So we got somebody from
Prove me wrong.
Australia with us. Ian from Australia.
Well,
good day, mate.
Wasn't going to go there, but yes. What's up?
You wasn't going to go to the Australian?
No, I wasn't going to go with the good day.
Oh, the good day.
Just I feel like that's just everybody goes in that direction. So I was not going to do that.
This is true. Yeah.
I feel like,
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
but anyway, yeah. So that game, are we going to talk about that game now, or are we going to wait until later?
Yeah, we can talk about it for just a minute. Yeah.
Okay, so that game, I know. I mean, it started off stupid and crazy as hell. With the opening drive for Auburn was about the dumbest I've ever seen in terms of play calling and execution. I mean, play calling itself could have been fine, but the execution was, you knew that this team was not ready to play. They were not anywhere close to the shape of playing. So when if it got tight in the end, you knew this team wasn't going to be the one that to succeed. Mainly because they just don't understand what it's like to win, and they don't have that winning mentality. But first play of the game, pass play.
I'm gonna be honest.
Don't have anything. I don't have any.
Coming off of the loss from last week, I was surprised really that Auburn could even stay in this game. To be honest, I mean,
look, this is a different animal, different beast, and you could have.
Yeah, but it was just a week ago. It has to be deflating what happened to them.
Yes, but again, this team is so inconsistent that they could have a game like that, and the very next game against a much better opponent, they could go out and have the game that they had. And even then, there were some dumb things that happened in that game. So, like I said, first play of the game, passing play, have nothing against it. But when Peyton Thorne, once everybody's covered, and has decided that he's going to roll out to try to make something happen, he rolls left and sees his tight end. Tight end sees him rolling left and decides he's going to turn up and go block. Well, Peyton, right before the tight end turns to see him go north, go north and south to block, he shuffles it to him like as if he was going to try to pass it to him. So obviously the two were not on the same page, but it was just one of those where those decisions and those things, when you have a congruent and a gelled team, that team, like, they know what each other is thinking. And when you saw that, you knew it was all discombobulated right there from the beginning. The second play, another pass play. Again, Auburn's bread and butter is running the ball. Alabama's weakness is teams running against them. Okay. So second play, another pass play. Wide receiver, sure-handed wide receiver, a one that the fans want to see more targets going to, gets targeted, catches the ball. Unfortunately for him, he has no field awareness and doesn't realize he's standing on the sidelines when he catches it. He had plenty of room to be in the field of play. He had nobody around him. He would have been fine had he just had more awareness. This is the second play of the game because Auburn took the opening kickoff. So second play of the game, and you've now had two just mental errors in this game. Two mental errors by the Auburn offense. Third play of the game, I can't even recall what it was, but it was also very much a dumb mental error. And then so we punt. Alabama marches it down methodically down the field, scores a touchdown, and you think that, all right, the route is on. Okay. Kickoff happens. Okay. Auburn fields the kickoff. Auburn makes the mistake of blocking a guy into the back. The very same guy that's being blocked in the back grabs the face mask of the ball carrier and nearly rips his head off. One flag is thrown for the block in the back, nothing for the face mask. At this point, it's even worse than you thought. Like now you're going against the refs. in this game, because now, like, that is a blatant, how did you miss that call? And anyway, so Auburn, I think, still goes 3-and-out in that series. They're not doing anything. And then I think it was third series, Auburn decides they're actually going to run the ball. They ran it 5 times, no passes, touchdown. So Auburn turns their mentality to running the ball at this point, and they end up staying in the game as this happens, because the defense has been decent and, fairly good throughout the year. Didn't know, depending on how the offense plays.
Mistakes and stuff that you're talking about, they still had a lead, and late. I'm talking real late in this game. And it was
here's where the stupid part comes in. Really. Here's where the stupid part comes in. We're about the coaching. Coach has no idea that the backup punt returner late in the ball game is in the game and not the actual punt returner. Okay, there's 2 different guys that have caught punts before. It's Keontae Scott and it's Moore. But Moore goes in. Moore is going to field the punt, slips, ball hits him. Alabama recovers. Alabama eventually, I think they get their final points and go ahead. I mean, because that's what they had the ball for pretty much the rest of the game. Now, there's that. And then there is the 4th and 31, last play of the game. Last play of the game, you have 2 guys rushing, the 2 edge rushers, and 1 spy.
Yeah.
A spy on 4th and 31 is one of the most dumb things ever. You've got 8 other guys behind you that are going to block that guy from getting to getting into the end zone. He ain't running.
End zone.
Okay.
He's got 31 yards.
He's got 31 yards and everybody running around in the end zone. Okay. So while you're spying, I don't know. There should have been the third guy, the guy in the middle, should have at least made an attempt to be rushing, because you need to apply pressure.
I believe that if that play was still going on right now, I don't think Auburn could have got to Milroe.
So you just still need to apply pressure with that guy that's there. Again, he needs to feel like that he's got not all day to sit back there. Okay. Auburn had been applying pressure.
He had all day.
He had all day, and he can sit there and he can just kind of nonchalant figure it out. Then in the end zone, in the end zone, hold on. In the end zone, there's the safety is supposed to be helping out on that side, and he bites to the middle. Don't know why, but you have 8 guys back there, probably covering 5, maybe, right? You're probably covering 5. 8 guys are covering 5. So you should probably have more than 1 on every person. And instead, it's 1-on-1. And Isaiah Bond, the ball's thrown perfectly. Isaiah Bond catches it, and it's a touchdown. I'm still talking here, so I'm trying to get the point through. This whole thing is that there was a lot of mistakes that were made in this game that can be applied to coaching, and that the mindset, a winning mentality that Alabama's got that Auburn doesn't have, that they don't have, and you could see it from the beginning of the game. You could see it early in the season, but when push comes to shove in this game, you knew who had that mentality. And of course, Saban says, at the end of the game, hey man, we practiced that scenario, which they practiced a scenario at the end of either half or end of game situations where you're throwing a Hail Mary down the field. I mean, that's what they're practicing. They changed the yardage on it from back and forth, from being, 15 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 50 yards, and making sure that they can get everything right.
I mean, of course.
If Auburn has been practicing it, you couldn't tell, because of the fact that there were places that people should have been that they weren't. And then the fact, again, that they were trying to spy a 4th and 31. The guy's got to get into the end zone. That's it. You don't need a spy. You need to rush him, something to make him make the decision and make the throw faster, and
Listen.
not from standing and being able to get into and throw it. I mean,
I'm a Kentucky fan. I get there's plenty of coaching stuff. I get it.
So
I do.
I'm just saying that there's a lot more into that. But when asked at the end of the game, Hugh Freeze, hey, what do you think about, or why was Coy Moore, fielding that punt? I didn't know he was in the game. That was his response. He did not realize that guy was in the game. Okay. As a head coach, I feel like you should know that. Again,
probably.
There's a lot of things that came to coaching.
We got a bunch of other stuff to talk about, but I got to move on. It's a heartbreaking loss. I mean, no matter how you turn it, it really is. So
when you're an Auburn fan and you've been around long enough, you've seen enough of those that just doesn't affect you.
I mean, you ain't got nothing on Kentucky fans. Kentucky fans got them too. I promise.
You ain't really been good enough to have these heartbreaking losses.
I'm telling you. Kentucky has plenty of them. I'm telling you. Arizona 59 beat Arizona State 23. Oklahoma beat BYU in double overtime. Oklahoma State, beat BYU in double overtime 40-34. Tennessee beat Vandy 48-24. Liberty beat UTEP 42-28. Northwestern beat Illinois 45-43. Again, I'm going to give major props to this Northwestern interim coach, and I don't even know his name, but they are 7-5 after one win last year and the Pat Fitzgerald mess that began this season. That is a terrific, terrific job of coaching. Wisconsin 28, Minnesota 14. Maryland beat Rutgers 42-24. Virginia Tech demolished Virginia at home 55-17. App State 55, Georgia Southern 27. James Madison beat the crap out of Coastal Carolina, and Coastal Carolina's got a pretty good team, 56-14. Marshall beat Arkansas State 35-14. Washington survived at home 24-21 with Washington State in that rivalry game. New Mexico State beat Jacksonville State 20-17. Florida State come back and won against Florida in the swamp last night 24-15. That was a game of backup QBs. It really was not that great of a game because, both teams was playing first-time QBs, basically. Notre Dame beat Stanford 56-23. West Virginia beat Baylor at Baylor 34-31. I got to give my man Neil Brown some props. He's been on the chopping block for 2 years. West Virginia is 8-4 and tied for 4th or 5th in the Big 12 this year. So I got to give him just a little bit of props. Texas State 52, South Alabama 44. Georgia kind of struggled with Georgia Tech last night, beat them 31-23 at home. Clemson beat South Carolina late last night in Carolina 16-7. Kansas handled Cincinnati 49-16. South Florida over Charlotte 48-14. Iowa State beat Kansas State at home 42-35.
In the snow.
In the snow, yeah. North Carolina State beat North Carolina 39-20. If you guys remember, I said they should have been ranked last week. They are now 9-3. 42 for Wyoming, 6 for Nevada. California manhandled UCLA in Los Angeles at home for UCLA, the Rose Bowl, 33-7. San Diego State beat Fresno State 33-18, and Hawaii beat Colorado State last night 27-24. That was one of those late games where Colorado State, if they had won, would have had 6 wins. They didn't get it. That was one of those late wins that let those teams get in that we were talking about earlier for the bowl eligibility. And that wraps up the college football scoreboard for week 13.
Yep. And some of the other games that allowed Jacksonville State and James Madison to get in, one was the Illinois.
South Carolina was one.
Yep. South Carolina was one. The Illinois Northwestern game was one. The Florida State was one.
Yep, it was.
Florida State beating Florida kept Florida from being bowl eligible.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Just a few notable games that were happening yesterday that were part of why teams like Jacksonville State and James Madison were able to get in as bowl eligible teams. Now we'll find out next.
Yeah, there was about 4 or 5 games even late last night, counting the South Carolina, the Florida, the Colorado State, Hawaii. I mean, there were some late games last night. You know, had they won, they would have been bowl eligible. And James Madison, Jacksonville State, and possibly a third team that you said. And
there should be a third team, and I cannot remember off the top of my head who. But I saw that there was a third team.
I've seen it late. I was watching it late last night.
Yeah.
All right. So the AP poll come out a little bit. The AP poll is not what is going to this season and the rankings and everything is going to go by, but I do think it's kind of an indicator where things are. So I'm still going to continue to do the AP poll. And it's week 13. I didn't change that. It's not week 12. It's week 13. Georgia is still number 1. Michigan, after their win over Ohio State, is 2. Washington moves up to 3, and Florida State moves up to 4. Those are the 4 remaining undefeated teams now. There is only 4, which coincidental, you know, if they can win, there's 4 spots in the college football playoff. Just saying. Oregon is 5. Ohio State fell to 6 after their loss. Texas remains at 7, and Alabama remains at 8. And I want to stop right there because the order has changed up a little bit. But the same 8 teams have been the top 8 in the country for 5 straight weeks. Okay? The last time there was no team turnover in the top 8 for that long during a season was in 2008. From weeks 11 through weeks 15 in 2008. So that's how long it has been since the top 8 teams have remained the same. This is 5 straight weeks. Missouri is 9 and Penn State is 10, rounds out the top 10. Ole Miss is 11. Oklahoma is 12. LSU 13. Arizona is 14. And Louisville fell to 15 after the loss to Kentucky. Notre Dame moved up to 16. Tulane is 17. Right now, they are the top group of 5 that is ranked. Tulane is at 11-1. Iowa is 18. Oklahoma State is 19. Liberty is 20. And I said there's only 4 undefeateds, and I'm sorry, I was wrong. Liberty is also still undefeated at ranked number 20. NC State moves in at 21 this week, 9-3. Oregon State fell to, well, they're tied. I'm sorry. Oregon State and NC State are actually tied at 21. And they fell to, they're 8-4. They fell to 21. Toledo, 11-1, is 23. James Madison is 24 again. And SMU comes into the poll for the first time as well this week, and they are 10-2 on the season. Now, what's interesting here is last week Tennessee remained at 25. And if you guys remember when we done this show, I talked to you guys about it, and I told you that I felt like Tennessee should be out and NC State should be in. And what's interesting is Tennessee beat Vandy 48-24 yesterday, and then falls out of the poll. So I don't see how you could drop them out of the poll this week. If you had them in last week, how do you drop them out this week? I don't see how you do that. Now, I don't think they deserve to be in the poll. I thought they should have fell out last week, not this week. I just don't agree with the way that happened.
So I guess Tennessee just barely missed it, being the highest voting team outside the poll. Clemson is next, Kansas State after that, Utah, Troy, Kansas, New Mexico State, Kentucky, Memphis, North Carolina, then Miami. If you kind of follow the order of the others receiving votes once they outside of the top 25. It just may have been that NC State and some of the ones that jumped into the poll may have just received enough votes from other people to get in, rather than
yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at the point totals from last week and this week to see if it's, similar. I mean, I don't know. You might be right. I mean, the point totals might be similar. I don't know.
I mean, it's possible that they were sitting there with NC State going, well, they beat a better team. North Carolina's a better team than Vanderbilt, and they beat them. So that's better than whatever Tennessee did, even though Tennessee, took care of business with Vanderbilt. So, I mean, I don't really care how these things fall out. This is an arbitrary number because this doesn't really mean anything to anybody. Since the CFP,
Right.
But here's the question now on Tuesday. Do you believe that Ohio State drops below Alabama? Like, do they drop to 9, or are they going to be like 6, like they are in the AP?
I think they'll be exactly where they are. My prediction is they will be number 6.
Which, okay, so here's my next.
Because Ohio State's loss is better than Alabama's loss. You can't drop them below Alabama, not in my opinion.
But they haven't been consistent with these losses anyway. So,
I mean, in my opinion, though, I'm just saying, if you're going to ask me, you have to slot Ohio State.
Why wouldn't they slot them ahead of Oregon?
Because Oregon's only loss is Washington,
which is number 3.
True, but it's right there.
I'm telling you, this is the kind of thing.
Could slot them. They could slot at 5. They're either, in my opinion, going to be 5 or 6. I think they're going to be 6, but I think that it could be, they will either fall to 5 or 6. They will not fall further than 6, in my opinion. I just don't see it.
Okay, I got another question. Missouri's 2 losses are to who?
LSU and Georgia.
Why is Penn State not ahead of Missouri? Penn State's 2 losses are to Michigan and Ohio State. Both teams are in the top 6. LSU is
13 and Georgia's 1.
Correct.
Yeah, something like that.
But like, why is Penn State not number 9?
In the rankings,
Yeah.
they might be. In the college football playoff rankings, they might actually be 9 this time.
No, they're not. Well, I mean, I'm just saying right now, it's Penn State is behind Missouri, even in the college football rankings.
Well, I mean, playing 1 is a little different, but I mean, they do have a loss to now 2 and 3. It's been 2 and 3. I mean, you are right about that.
I mean, I'm just telling you that this is all inconsistent. I'm telling you that the inconsistencies of the college football rankings is all over the board.
I mean, when you have to me, and I'm just going to be honest with you, when you have teams that only have 1 or 2 losses, and their losses are against the top competition that you are ranking them with, then to me, you have to go by where their losses rank. I mean, you don't have anything else to go by, if you ask me. I mean, what else are you going to go by? The eye test? I mean, now, if their one loss, if their one loss was to, I don't know.
What about the strength of record and strength of schedule? Why do they not?
I mean, strength of schedule, yes, for me would come into play if there is a drastic difference. If there's a drastic difference, yes.
Yeah,
we're kind of talking playoff landscape here, so I'm going to go ahead and change it up to playoff landscape, because that's kind of what we're talking about here. But I mean, if you're telling me that Texas should be, or Alabama should be put in over Texas or whatever, because Alabama's strength of schedule is 12 and Texas is 15, then I think you're full of shit. It's too close. I don't see that. But now, if you're telling me that their strength of schedule is 12 and Texas is 35, then okay, maybe we should take that into consideration when we look at things. If it's a drastic difference, then I agree with that. You asked me where I thought Ohio State's going to fall. That's where I think they're going to fall to 5 or 6. They were number 1 before last week in the college football playoff. They just dropped to 2. Michigan was 3. Ohio State was 2. If Ohio State had been 3, then maybe they do fall to 7 or 8. I don't know, but I just don't think they're going to fall that far, losing to the 3rd-ranked team in the college football playoff, being their only loss. Ohio State's problem is going to be they're going to need these other teams to lose. They're going to need Washington and Florida State to lose. Or
so here's the deal. It's not necessarily between Alabama and Texas. I'm not really pushing the Alabama versus Texas, because the Texas has Alabama beat in just about every category when you're talking about all the metrics. Okay. What I'm looking at is, okay, strength of schedule. The strength are there. Let's go with the strength of schedule right now. So strength of schedule, Florida State has number 3 strength of schedule. Washington has the number 2. Michigan's got number 1, Georgia's number 4, Ohio State's 5, Texas is 6, Alabama's 7. Okay, you go over to the FP. You go over to the FPI.
Michigan has the number 1 strength of schedule.
Yeah, that's what it says, man. I don't have to believe it. I'm just writing you. I'm just letting you know what the what it is.
That's the most insane thing I ever heard of. Go look at their schedule.
Okay. Anyway, the FPI has Michigan number 2, Washington 13, Florida State number 9, Georgia number 5, Ohio State's number 1, Texas number 7, Alabama number 6. Okay. Once you go over to, where is it? There's one of these where it just gets wacky. I guess. So that was strength of record was the first one. So strength of schedule. Here's strength of schedule. Okay. Michigan is 36. Washington is 46. Florida State is 56. Georgia is 59. Ohio State is 6, which I don't understand the difference between Michigan and Ohio State. Texas is 13. Alabama is 31. Which, again, like a lot of these things are just kind of wacky to me. But either way, it's that there's a lot of these things where you're looking at, and it's not necessarily like I said, it's not necessarily the Alabama versus Texas, but it's more like the Alabama versus Florida State, Texas versus Florida State, all of those. And the only thing that's keeping Florida State afloat, it seems like, is more of
let's talk about some scenarios real quick.
Okay.
Let's talk about some scenarios real quick.
Yeah.
So we got championship week coming up.
Correct.
And we got 4 undefeated. We got 4 undefeated teams that are up in there. I think it's basically going to be the 4 teams is going to come from those 8. I don't see any other teams getting in.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah,
I mean,
it's not going to be anybody from below the 8, but you're probably not going to get anybody like Alabama right now. Still looks like they may not get in. So,
well, I want to kind of run through. So Georgia, I mean, they're in if they win. Michigan is in if they win. Washington is in if they win. And more than likely, Florida State is in if they win. So if all 4 of those teams win, then this whole Oregon and Ohio State and Texas and Alabama talk is basically a bunch of nothing.
Right.
In my opinion. Like, I don't, I think that all 4 of those will get in. However, Alabama's only hope to get in, the only hope they have is to beat Georgia.
Yes, well, they have to. Of course, they can't lose that game and get
to
in.
Georgia, and then the other teams hope the other teams lose or whatever and still sneak in. They can't do that. Texas, if you ask me, setting at 7. The only chance that Texas has to get in, if you ask me, they got to have Oregon beat Washington. They got to have Georgia beat Bama, because Bama can't jump them by beating Georgia. They got to have Georgia beat Bama. They got to have, and they got to have Louisville upset FSU.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah, because you can't have a 2-loss Louisville. They're not getting in. They're 2 losses.
Right. So that would, if FSU loses, I do not think they're getting in the top 4.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
So Washington, I'm not sure about because they would lose to probably the fifth ranked team. And maybe they stay at the 4 spot. I'm not
I
sure.
don't think.
I mean,
Look,
Washington.
I think if Washington loses, they trade places with Oregon. They have to, because look, while both have lost one game once to each other, the game that matters the most is going to be the final one, the one that they played, the championship. Because what will happen is this: Washington will be a one-loss team without a Pac-12 championship, and Oregon will be a one-loss Pac-12 champion. Okay, they will be a one-loss conference champion.
Yeah, but is there a scenario where Oregon beats Washington and still doesn't get in?
Then Washington doesn't get in either. Like you're talking about a scenario where both Oregon and Washington don't get in. You can't be talking about a scenario where Oregon beats Washington and Washington still gets in and Oregon doesn't, because that won't happen. But if Oregon beats Washington and neither of them get in, I'd have to see exactly what that scenario looks like. So you're looking at Michigan winning and getting in. That's 1. Georgia winning and getting in. That's 2. Texas winning and getting in. That's 3. I mean, you would have to go with this. It would have to be that Georgia lost to Alabama.
Louisville beats FSU.
It would for this scenario that the Pac-12 does not get in. The scenario where the Pac-12 does not get in is this: Michigan wins, Florida State wins, Texas loses, okay, and Bama beats Georgia. Georgia just falls from 1 to 4.
4,
yeah. It would have to be that. Georgia goes from 1 to 4. Bama gets into the 3.
Right.
Michigan is the 2, and Florida State is Michigan is the 1 and Florida State's the 2.
So then that would leave Washington and Oregon out.
That would be the only way. And even then, I don't believe that would happen. I think the loser of the SEC championship is out. So basically
the exact, because they would all.
I guess what you would. I guess the way that you would see it is that the loser, if Georgia's the loser of the SEC championship and Washington is the loser of the Pac-12 championship, then if you're going to pick one or the other, they're going to pick Georgia over Washington, and that you would have Alabama the SEC champion and Georgia a one-loss non-champion. They would be the highest ranked non-champion to get in.
In my opinion, sitting right here talking about all these scenarios, I actually think that Texas has the worst odds to get in.
To get in? If they win, okay, let's just go with the scenario they win. Okay, so we have Georgia. Let's just go with Georgia. Let's just go with Georgia. Georgia wins. They're in. They're the number 1. Michigan wins. They're the number 2. Okay.
Washington wins.
Washington wins. They're number 3. Okay. Now, if Georgia wins, Bama's out.
Yes.
They're not getting in. Okay?
Yes, Bama's out. Yeah.
Right. Bama's completely gone. Washington wins, Oregon's completely gone.
Yes.
Okay. They're not a part of it.
Yes.
So you're saying that if Texas wins, okay, so now we're looking at Texas wins and Florida State wins, right? So Florida State being the 4 or Texas being the 4, right? That's what you're arguing, because if Texas loses, they're out. Right?
Yes.
They're not getting it. They're not getting it.
They have to win, yes. Yeah, right. Texas has to win.
So FSU, it would have to be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, and FSU for Texas not to get it. They all 4 would have to win.
And I think
Texas,
undefeated.
Huh? Yeah, that's
And
what
I
I'm
think
saying.
with all 4 undefeateds, they would. But
They're all
listen,
undefeated. They're all
even if
conference champions. So
even if
that
one of them loses, I think there are scenarios that Texas doesn't get in.
okay. So let's talk about that. Let's go in with so let's say that FSU, Michigan, and Georgia all win. Those are 3 undefeateds, right? So now we're going to talk about a one loss Oregon versus one loss Texas. That's the difference. It's going to be that one or the other. Okay. And I think Oregon's win in this game propels them in over Texas.
Yeah.
So Texas doesn't get in. Right.
Yeah, I do too.
But it's a one loss but I mean you're still competing. It's one loss versus one loss. So yeah, Texas doesn't get in on that one. If it's a one loss Oregon versus one loss Texas.
If Bama beats Georgia, I don't think Texas gets in.
So
if Bama beats Georgia, Texas doesn't get in.
Right. So Michigan, Washington, and FSU all win. Let's just go with those right now. And the only difference is now it's a one-loss Bama versus a one-loss Texas. That will be the one. That's the one scenario where like Bama will have the best win in all of college football. They will have beaten the number one team. They will have beaten the number one team.
I think
right.
Bama will jump.
This is where this is
the only way that Bama jumps Texas is if they beat Georgia.
Because you've now beaten the number one team in college football.
Yeah. Right.
I think that's the only way that happens. Otherwise, most scenarios, yeah. I mean, you're going to have to be you're pitting one loss Texas Big 12 champion versus one loss Oregon, one loss Texas versus one loss Bama.
Even one loss Washington, they don't get in, I don't think.
No. Because one loss Texas would be a conference champion and Washington would not. That's the only reason. You would drop Washington below Texas. Texas gets in.
If it was me, if you're talking about the whole season, I put Washington over.
Look, I agree, but I'm telling you what they're going to do. They're going to put Washington. They're going to put Texas in. They're not going to do.
I would put a one-loss Washington over Texas.
None of these. Okay, so outside of the SEC having Alabama and Georgia in, I don't know if Michigan and Ohio State both could be in at the same time, or Washington and Oregon being in at the same time. Like I don't see it. The only way that I can see two conference teams getting in this year would have to be Bama and Georgia, and I don't even see that happening. I'm just telling you that I just don't think that they're going to put two teams from the same conference this year. The
only way that it could happen is Bama and Georgia.
Like I said, it's the only way it could happen is Bama and Georgia.
Opinion.
You're not gonna get it with Michigan and Ohio State, and you're not gonna get it with Washington and Oregon.
No, not both of them.
No.
You won't get both of them. No.
Because
I agree with that.
Bama, in order for Bama to be in, they have to beat Georgia, and that means that they have the only win against a number one team this year, because the only time that any other team has been number one was Ohio State, and they got dropped out of being the number one, not because they lost, but because the I guess the metrics or whatever, they decided to jump Georgia over Ohio State. Yeah. So no number one team has ever lost this year, but there have been changes in number one based on, the way that they looked. Right.
Yeah.
So it's my.
Yeah. All right. So that's a pretty good rundown. We went through just about every team and some scenarios and stuff. So that's a pretty good rundown. Let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly for Week 13. This is always a pretty fun segment that me and John do here at the weekend wrap up for College SportsCast. So, John, what do you think is the good for Week 13 rivalry week?
Okay, so the good I would have to say is I'm going to go with Michigan beating Ohio State is my good.
That's a good one. I mean, 3 straight years without their head coach.
And this time, kind of doing it without the whole cheating.
Yeah. With no chance of that, holding over their head and stuff. So, I mean, that's a good one to pick off of this past week. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, I thought Oregon had a pretty solid, significant win.
They did.
Oregon.
And I think, again, a lot of your Heisman Trophy contenders had decent games, but not just overly outstanding. I think Bo Nix was probably the one that had the best of the three, but I think that was it.
Yeah. So I would say Oregon and Bo Nix and their team, I would put them as a good for this past week as well. A lot of the other teams struggled, I thought, really, at times. So I'll go with that. The bad for you?
The way Auburn lost.
The way Auburn lost?
Yes.
Okay.
The way Auburn lost.
The Auburn loss was bad. I'm not so sure it's not ugly, to be honest. But
I was going to go with the Florida State game just being ugly. Just wasn't great.
Ugly. And
so that's why I went with the way Auburn lost. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go either way. Again, Auburn being a part of the bad or the ugly in back-to-back weeks is it's not a great look. But I'm putting it in there.
So I'll flip it then. I'll put the Florida State game as the bad, just because it was it's backup quarterbacks, first time playing in college game. They're in a big rivalry week, with Florida State having playoff, implications. And I mean, it really kind of sucked that the two quarterbacks got hurt and that game was, that basically, so I'll do that for that. And then, like I said, the way Auburn lost in this game was ugly. I mean, I've said this about Kentucky several times in a couple of these big games this year. It seems like we're dropping 8 or we're dropping 9 against these better teams, and it does nothing. We can't. I mean, they just sit in the pocket and pick you apart because you can't. You got 5 guys, maybe possibly 6 if you put a running back in there blocking 2 or 3 guys. I mean, you just can't get to them. And I don't understand why defensive coordinators do that. I just don't understand it. I never have. I never will. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I don't understand it. So
yeah. Hey, did you see that? What I just sent? I gotta bail. I'm sorry.
You got a jet?
Yeah.
Okay, man. All right. I got you. All right. So that is our good, bad, and the ugly. And John had a jet. Sorry. But I'm just about done. Talk a little basketball, and then we'll look at the week ahead. So this past week in college basketball was Feast Week, and that's always the week of Thanksgiving. There is tons and tons and tons, really, 15, 16 really good tournaments to turn on and watch. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I do want to talk about 4 of the bigger tournaments. I will start with the ESPN Events Invitational. FAU goes through, beats Texas A&M and a few good teams, and goes through and wins the ESPN Events Invitational. They were coming in off of a loss. Texas A&M has a really, really good team. They scored like 96 on them, beat them 96-89. FAU did. Florida Atlantic with coming off of the Final Four. They had a bad loss before this, but they really had a good showing in Feast Week at the ESPN Events Invitational. So I wanted to bring that one up, as well as the Battle for Atlantis. I wanted to talk about this one. North Carolina was in it. Arkansas was in it. They were the preseason ranked teams, and neither team made it to the finals. Villanova won the tournament and beat North Carolina 83-81 in the semifinals of that. Went to the finals, played Memphis, who beat Arkansas. Good rivalry game there between Memphis and Arkansas. Arkansas has not looked good early in this season so far. They were highly ranked. I think the second ranked SEC team preseason, like 12 or 13, something like that. And I've watched them 3 times, or part of 3 times now. They're 4-3, and they are just struggling putting the ball in the hole. They can't shoot, even layups, dunks even. I've seen them miss. I mean, they are just struggling. They're great defensively. They're athletic. They can jump, run. They can do all of run with you up and down the floor. I mean, they're great. They just can't finish, and I don't know if they can fix that or not. But Arkansas has been struggling. North Carolina, just Villanova done a great job and hit a shot late and beat them, and then comes back and beats Memphis in the final. So congrats to them for winning the Battle for Atlantis. Another one that I want to talk about real quick was Baylor winning the NIT tip-off, preseason tip-off tournament. They beat Florida in the finals in a close game, 95-91. And Baylor's putting up a lot of points. This Florida team looks legit as well. They had a hard-fought game, kept it close the entire game. Baylor's ranked, Florida's not this week. New polls will come out on Tuesday. It'd be interesting to see if Florida gets any love in the poll. They've lost 2 games by a total of 6 points, and Virginia and now with Baylor, the 2 teams that they have lost to. And then the last one I want to talk about is the Maui Invitational. It was the highlight of the week. There was 5 top 11 teams in this thing. Kansas was in it. Number 1 team was in it. Purdue was in it. The number 2 team. Marquette, the number 4 team, was in it. There was 3 top 4 teams in the Maui Invitational. And so, there was some really, really good teams in this tournament. And Tennessee, who was ranked 7th, was in it. Tennessee took 2 losses in the Maui Invitational. They took a loss to Purdue. They took 2 losses in this tournament, was in both games, but, lost both games. Tennessee did. So that's 2 SEC teams that took 2 losses in these tournaments. Tennessee was one. And Purdue comes out on top in this one. Marquette looked really, really good, guys. I watched them play a couple of times. They play a 4-guard lineup and have 1 big in the middle. And I'm telling you right now, guys, this Marquette team is scrappy as hell and can defend and guard and shoot. they are for real. Honestly, they lost by 3 points to 7'4" Edie and Purdue, 78-75 in the final. Purdue looks very, very improved. They've got a couple of transfers in, and their guard play and stuff does look improved. They look like a really good team as well. Kansas, I will say this. I've seen them play twice. They have a really, really good 4. They just don't have much after that. They have 1, 2, 3, and 4 really good players. College basketball players. I'm just not impressed with what they have 5 through 8. And I think it's going to cost them some games this year. So that's my take on college basketball. Kentucky looked amazing the other night, but we're going to find out on Tuesday because Tuesday and Wednesday night is the new ACC SEC challenge. There are 7 games versus each other on Tuesday night and 7 games on Wednesday night. And then the women's basketball is Wednesday and Thursday. There's 5 on Wednesday and 9 on Thursday. ACC versus SEC. It's going to be a fun one. The new ACC SEC challenge. I do have an article on Stadium Rant. So if you are paying attention, go find on Stadium Rant and find my article on the ACC SEC challenge. I would appreciate it. Check it out, and just gives you a lineup and when the games are and where they are, and talks just a smidget about it. But check it out. It's a new article from today. It should be posted up there today. And that is my little take on college basketball so far. So I'm going to get to the week ahead. Championship week, guys. This is the last week of college football. After this, we will have the bowl games. Of course, we will, for the next 6 weeks, we'll still be talking college football because we'll have bowl games just about every week. The next week, we will only have one game, and that's Army Navy. And then we'll have about 5 weeks after that of bowl games and stuff. So there is 1 week in there where it's just the one game. I'm pretty sure that's it. So championship week is coming up. There are 6 ranked versus ranked championship games this week. First one is Georgia versus Bama. Number 1 versus number 8 in the SEC championship game. It's going to be a well of a game. Bama thinks they have a chance. I was talking to a friend of mine that's a Bama fan this morning. We were kind of shooting the shit back and forth a little bit and having a little fun. And we'll see what happens. Georgia wins, they're in. Bama wins, they have a chance to be in. I still think Georgia has a chance to be in if they lose. Big Ten championship is number 18 Iowa versus number 2 Michigan. Iowa's 10-2, guys. So, it's not like Iowa's been a slouch this year. They have had a great season. They are 10-2. They're ranked number 18 in the country. Have a great defense again, just like normal. They've had some injuries. And since their injuries, their offense has suffered. They were averaging like 22, 23 points a game. They lost their quarterback for the season. They lost 2 tight ends for the season. And if you know Iowa football, that's their bread and butter. And it's been a struggle since then to score points, but they've still been winning ball games. So we'll see what happens. 2 great defenses. Michigan has a great defense. Iowa has a great defense. And the Pac-12 championship is a top 5 matchup. Number 5 Oregon versus number 3 Washington, and that's on Friday night in Vegas. So just so you all know, that is a Friday night game coming up this week. ACC championship is number 15 Louisville versus number 4 Florida State. Florida State wins. They have an undefeated season. They're probably getting in. After Louisville getting beat by Kentucky this week, we pretty much knocked Louisville out, so they don't have a shot, but they can upset Florida State and keep them out. Oklahoma State is in the same situation. They're playing Texas in the Big 12 championship, and Oklahoma State has 2 losses. They don't have any chance. They're 19th in the polls. They don't have any chance of getting to the college football playoff, but they could keep Texas from getting there as well. And then the 6th one is the AAC. We have number 25 SMU versus number 17 Tulane in New Orleans as a ranked versus ranked championship game. It's one to pay attention to. The winner of this game may be the top group of 5, and that is significant because they do get a New Year's Six bowl. It is guaranteed, locked up. Troy got that last year. I think it was Troy and got the win. No. It's who beat USC. I can't think of who it was. Anyways, Liberty, who's 12-0, is up in there, and then these 2 teams, Tulane and SMU, are 2 of them that's up in there. And these teams have a chance. James Madison is also there. That's the other team. They're in the Sun Belt. And that's going to be a good game as well. I'll throw that one in there because there is one ranked team in that versus a 2-10 Troy team in the Sun Belt. That's going to be a good game to pay attention to. James Madison versus Troy, 11-1, 10-2 in that one. And that's going to be a good game to pay attention to in the Sun Belt. So there is 7 of the championship games that I just talked about. There are 3 others, but I think those 7s are the worthy ones to pay attention to next week. And we are going to find out, guys, how all this ends and who makes the final 4-team college football playoff. There is going to be some teams left out. And a couple of them, at least one, is going to have a little bit of ground to stand on to whine about. Probably. So with all that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. It's been College SportsCast Weekend Wrap-Up Show, and this is Week 13, Rivalry Week, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week for our Weekend Wrap-Up Show. But join us Tuesday night, and we will do our Big Fuss Show. It is going to be Tuesday night here on YouTube and our Facebook. Like and follow, and we'll be here at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night. So y'all have a good night.